wrote something in.
Yeah. She has to. She wants to live with her voice. Yeah.
It's like,
Just like it?
what is that?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's not as easy like being orange.
Yeah.
That was because that was Are we good? Ahoy, mateys! Let's gather up, chat a little bit. I only have a beer and a half in me or so, so I apologize if my opening remarks aren't as colorful as they normally are. Okay, so welcome to the June edition of the Ember Denver Meetup. Yeah! Please clap. So I'd like to thank our sponsors, Digabit, Zero, and Ibotta. So, Digabit folks, would you like to say anything?
Yes. Hi, we use Ember in our applications. Dennis specifically uses them very often, and so we're excited to be sponsoring. We are hiring. We are revolutionizing the way equipment manufacturers share information and transforming people into the knowledge economy. I just made that up. The National Marketing Department, that's what we do. But I think it's pretty cool and exciting, so we'd love to talk to you if you're interested.
Outstanding. And Ibotta.
Water bottle.
Hell yeah.
Swag.
Woo.
Yeah, hey, we are Ibotta. You can find us, I think, probably. And we have this nice office. We are the app that pays you cash. You get rebates on your everyday purchases. We are looking for Rails engineers and Android and iOS. Yep, or it's Ben or Alex or Mike. We are migrating everything from Objective-C to Swift, about 50%. For the Android, Java.
Cool. And then, hi, I'm Frankie. I run a company called Zero, but I changed his name to Ultra Fragon. We're the greatest Ember consultancy in Denver. So you should come hit us up on your next adventurous design thing. Wow, thank you so much. Bravo. Okay, so welcome to our community. First timers, hands. Oh, a couple of you. Very cool. Yeah! Welcome! Raise your hand if your name is on this list. Cool. So we help
the other half of the room.
Yes. We help put this thing on. So if you have questions about community, getting started, any of that sort of shit, hit us up. I want to talk about open source night. We still don't have a date for the next one, but we are still committed to making sure that it happens. If you're not familiar with open source night, the gist of it is that opposed to our regular meetups, which are more speaker focused and mingling, these are like project night kind of stuff. They're hosted at Digabit, and they focus on getting people started and contributing to open source. And so David Baker is on the Ember team and has been curating an awesome list of things that need work done, some stuff that's great for beginners. If you've never been involved in open source, been involved in open source other projects, want to figure out how to get involved in our stuff, this is a great opportunity for you. And so keep an eye out on meetup.com. That's where we'll announce it. And they are a blast. Outside of Ember, we have Ember forums, IMO. They're the best tech forums on the internet. They're like both in terms of quality and in terms of the quality of the forum engine, which is an Ember app. It's a discourse if you ever use that before. EmberConf just happened in March, happening again next March, and the Global Ember Meetup, which somebody spoke at super recently. We talked about that last time.
Videos are going to be available soon from that. There's a lot of really great talks, so I'll let you guys know.
Outstanding. Cool. So let's talk about what's happened in Ember in the last month. Ember 2.6 and Ember Data 2.6 came out. Relatively minor feature releases, but the stuff you got to know is that using the render helper with a model has been deprecated. So, and if you've never dealt with Ember deprecation before, they are the best in all technology, where you'll get a very clear guide on like what will be going away the next time a major release comes out and what you need to be doing to address it. In that case, if you're doing something like render template model, you should just move all that over to components.
And you probably should stop using render.
Oh, like altogether, like yes.
That's going to go away.
Indeed.
You mean like in browsers? Do like programmatic
And
controlling it?
no, template.
Okay.
Yes.
They're recommended template.
Yeah.
So it will be done.
Amen to that. In Ember Data, we got an additional way to serialize polymorphic relationships. Details on that are on the blog post. I thought this was really cool. If emberdaily.tips is you get emailed an Ember tip every single day. Pretty cool service. And there's finally a cool Ember Data book. Ember Data in the Wild. I believe that's Pack Publishing. But look it up. Good stuff. And other stuff. What else is going on in the Ember world? Westburn.
Wiki Good Ember just wrapped up, and this
Oh,
video
that's
is gonna be
right.
going up live relatively soon, so worth keeping an eye. I heard that the closing keynote thumbnail is particularly good. I don't know what, but
Sounded like just using a smaller.
Oh yeah.
Yes. Standing. What else? What else is going on in the Ember world? Yeah, Ben.
Ophir Golan never stops working, so Ember CP validations 3.0 beta 1 came out yesterday, and Ember Light Table is 1.0 in the next few days. So Ember Light Table is really awesome if you need like tabular data and sorting and that kind of stuff. Check it out. And if you're still using Ember Validations, the Dockyard project, check out Ember CP Validations. It's all computer property based. There's some awesome new API stuff that Ophir and I have been working on for 3.0.
Outstanding. What else? What else is in the news? What else is going on? Going once? Going twice? It is. So, anybody here looking for work right now? 0 people. Going once. Going twice.
So anybody who's mind I could change.
So, on that note, anybody want to pitch for why you should come work for a company?
Already did it.
Cool. So, anyone else have Ember gigs? We might know some people that are looking for Ember jobs. Once, twice, 3 times a week. All right, terrific. Fucking party, man. So our one speaker this evening takes the place of 3 different speakers. So it is my distinct pleasure to introduce Mr. Dennis Fowling.
Just the HDMI?
Yeah. I also have a clicker if you need one.
Stay here.
I got
an Ember app from scratch. You're not inheriting any of the the route, the application, the container. All that is being recreated every time you go, and it's reloading that. Those of you who are new to Ember, Ember makes that really easy. It's kind of like Rails, where you can say, give me a link to this other thing you know about, and it will do that for you. And if you try to give it a link to something it doesn't know about, it warns you. And so you aren't spinning your wheels saying, why is my link not working? It tells you, this is not a valid link, this will not work. And it can also be difficult to manage shared state. So what do you do when you go from one app to another app? Do you shove stuff in local storage? Do you query parameterize all of it to shove it over? Or do you push it all up to the server and get some little code back so that the other app can then pull it back from the server? Like there's a lot of different ways to do it, but none of those are that great to work with. Add-ons, so this is probably the more popular route in the Ember community. An add-on is just an easy way to pull in external code that's designed to work for Ember. So you can pull in another component, you can pull in like a route, you can pull in some util, just some feature, and it can be brought into your app. Again, a problem there is you're just kind of wiring it all by yourself. You don't have the router, so in Ember, the router is what says, we have these 10 routes available. We have users, we have admin, we have dashboard. The router knows about all that. So if you do an add-on, you're kind of manually having to say, well, from this add-on, I'm getting these things. So I need to add all those things into my router. You're kind of managing that by hand. It's not awful, but it is very manual, and it's very error prone. Because if somebody adds something new to the add-on, you then have to add it new to your app as well. Now you can do nothing. That's also an alternative, is do nothing and let it get big. I mean, maybe it doesn't matter. Frequently it doesn't. Docimoto is doing great in our industry, and it's gotten pretty big. It's up to about 5 megs to load that whole app up, but our customers love it. So we know we can do better. We've just had other priorities, but that is an option sometimes. It's just bad. It's not a priority. And so engines. So that's the new kid on the block. That's the proposal for kind of fixing some of this. Okay, so what are engines? They're add-ons. So I just told you about the problems with add-ons. This is different. They're add-ons, but they have some special functionality to make them not act just like add-ons. You can have routable ones or routeless. So a routeless one, it's just a page. So you kind of mount this one thing, kind of like a component, and that's it. It's just that one view. You mount it, and that's it. Routable ones are like an Ember app where you can point it to this route. Like you've got your users, you've got your user/13, which is for editing user 13. Dashboard, all that. You can have all these different routes that are underneath a single engine. So what is shared just between the two? So an engine to the application shares the routes. So that's what an add-on can't do. And it shares styles. Any add-on can share styles, and that's kind of a loose term for me to say it shares styles. I'll mention that again in a second. The application to the engine will share routes, share services, styles again, and the containers. So the container in Ember is what glues everything together. Whenever you say, I want this service, I want this route, the container is responsible for all of that. So routes, or the engines do not have their own container. They are given that from their from that main application. And I said styles are kind of weird. That's simply because styles are always weird. Style sheets suck. They're global. So you import a style sheet, and it all just is there. They're all globals. All of the CSS can affect other parts of CSS. You need best practices to make sure that doesn't happen. But that's the way that these styles are shared between the two things, is you use them, and just out of the nature of how styles work, they're everywhere. But add-ons can share a style sheet up to the main app, so that's how they do it. All right, I'm going to dump a lot of code on you guys to show you how to set this up. So when you're creating an engine, if you look at the docs right now, they're actually slightly out of date because they talk about how to do it prior to Ember 2.6. Ember 2.6 brought along a few improvements to make this a little bit easier. So you don't have to do some of the deleting of Ember that it will tell you to do. But you use Ember add-on and then the name that you want your engine to be. So, you know, my engine or user's engine, your dashboard or whatever. You need to change into the engine, and then you do Ember install Ember engines. So that brings in the Ember add-on for engines. And then a lot of the manual stuff starts. So that's the nice, pretty Ember stuff we're used to, where things are pretty automated and work for us. Now it gets very manual. So a lot of this, once engines is more matured, they want to bring this into the actual just standard mainstream. And so if you do Ember new or Ember add-on, you could say like Ember engine and create one instead that way. But right now you don't have that, so you have to go through a very manual process that I have fucked up every single time I've gone through it. So that's why I'm not live coding right now. But so you touch addon/engine.js. That is actually addon/engine.js. So don't think that addon is telling you go into your add-ons directory and touch engine.js. You do that, like me, it won't work, and it will silently fail. And then inside that file, you put this code. So what this is saying, this is just the basic engine code. This is kind of like your app code in an Ember application. And you give it the name of the engine over here. You're extending engine, so this is kind of the standard ES6 module extension. You have your module prefix. If you fuck this up, it will silently fail also, which I did. And resolver, a lot of this, it just tells you to copy paste it in. I forgot to change this, and so mine didn't work. And if it's a routable one, which is really all I'm going to talk about, the routeless ones aren't as interesting, but it's just simpler. You don't need this if you're doing a routeless one. But a routable one, you make this file. So again, in the add-on directory, you make a routes.js. It looks a lot like Ember's router, and you'll see very similar syntax, like this .route, and you give the name of a route, and you can give it a path also. So these are routes you want to expose to an outer Ember app. And so that app will know about these routes. If you don't put them in here, it won't know about them. Okay, in the app, you install Ember engines. If you're already on Ember 2.6, you're good. If you're not on Ember 2.6, you need to get on Ember 2.6. and then hopefully it'll work. I tried migrating one of my apps from before 2.6 to 2.6 and then using engines, and I couldn't get it working. Engines expects your app to have been scaffolded by the CLI for 2.6. If you scaffold it with an older version, it won't work. It has complaints about the resolver. All the posts I found about that, they're like, oh yeah, you should have done this. Yeah. It's like, okay, well, what if I'm migrating an existing app? Like, what do I do for that? I didn't dig into that further. If you are trying to use this for an existing app that you've migrated from before 2.6, then that might be a wall you hit. It's surmountable. You know, the code is code. You just need to figure out what to change to make it work. I don't know what that is. So if you learn that, I guess communicate that back up the tree. That should be in their docs, honestly.
Is that actually pods?
We use pods.
Oh, but like if your project is structured pods and you're on 2.6.
It knows pods. It will work with pods. Yeah. In one of our apps, we are, yeah. So this is a great excuse to not do that. Yeah. All right. So next, also in your Ember app, you have to change your app/app.js. This is like the core of your Ember app. If you're new to Ember, you probably haven't touched this yet. This gets modified by a lot of add-ons you use. Like if you install Mocha for testing, it's going to manipulate this file a little bit. But you probably won't go in here very often. But for engines, you do. So you'll see up at the top, we have a new variable declared, engines. And then we have an engine name We specify any dependencies that that engine has. So like you can say that it has a service and pass in the store service. And then ember.application.extend, you pass in the engines. You also have to swap resolvers. So Ember's resolver is how it finds where are my files. Like if you specify that you want to load the template dashboard, the resolver is how it finds those files. At my company, we've done a custom resolver, which makes this a pain. So don't do custom resolvers. It's not a good idea. But this resolver, you have to use the Ember engine resolver instead. And then lastly down there, this is your router. So in Ember, this is where you say all the views that you can navigate to. So if somebody clicks a link and they navigate to a different screen, that's generally a route in Ember. And here to tell it about other routes that are in that engine, this is all you do. So you don't have to expose that there's these 13 routes. You don't have to keep adding them manually. This one line will say that any routes that are added to my engine are accessible in my app. It's really nice. It makes life a lot easier. Development. This is actually just advice for developing an Ember add-on. If you're making an add-on, you're making a separate NPM project. Generally, let's pretend you are making a separate NPM project. In that separate add-on, while you're working on it, you don't want to have to manually like copy the code over or publish it or anything like that before you can test it. So the ideal thing to do is in your add-on, in this case an engine, just run npm link. And that basically just tells your local version of npm that if anything goes looking for this project, for the name of my project, use me, like I am it. And then in your app, you use npm and then link and then the name of that engine. And really all this does is create a symbolic link from your node modules to wherever that add-on is. But it makes life a lot easier. Even when you change files inside your add-on, Ember's live reload will see that and it will refresh the page. So it's really nice. I highly recommend it. And the one thing that I always forget to do after doing this, because npm install, if you use that, adds it to your package.json. npm link does not. It will not add it to your package.json. And so then you'll spend all this time wondering, why is my engine not working? So don't forget to add it. And in my case, I just add that I need something better than 0.0.0. There's probably a better way to do that, to say, like, I'll take anything. I think asterisk works, but that's what I did and it worked. So obviously, you do not want that for production code. You don't want to say that, oh, use any version you have of anything. That's terrible. All right, so demo. Like I said, I'm not live coding because I tried to run through this so many times and I never got it down. And every time I hit a wall, it was like 30 minutes of trying everything. So I'm not going to waste our time or embarrass myself further by doing that. All right, is that legible? Dennis, go bump up a few more sizes. Okay. All right, so this is my app for the like my main app that's using the engines. So this is where you pull the engines in. You'll see that I have declared my engines. I have the name of one engine. Here I have its dependencies. I have external routes. So these do have to be passed into your engine. You have to tell it, like, here are the things that you have access to. So like you have to tell it, here's your store. You also have to tell it, here are other routes that you can get to. And so it knows that, oh, if I want to go to this, I will go out through my app to get to it. If you don't do this, your engine just doesn't know about that route. So you do have to manually tell engines everything they have access to. And then I have another engine right there, and I'm passing other things in. Here's my resolver. You can see it's a very clean resolver. I only changed ember/resolver to ember-engines/resolver. And here is my route. So you'll see that, or my router, I'm sorry. So you'll see I have one kind of regular route there at the bottom, events. And then I have two mounts. So mounts is pulling in those engines. So saying just dump all of the routes inside those inside this namespace. So your namespace, like I have housing-engine, and so all the routes inside it will go underneath that. Yeah?
Do you know if you can count routes inside?
Yeah, you can. Yeah, so this is still a router, like a fairly normal router. So you can do the nesting, you can do the as. So if you don't like the name of your engine as the URL, then you can rename it in here.
Question.
Yep.
Can you nest engines inside of engines and have them mount
know.
routes all the way up?
Actually, in the RFC, they do say you can do that. The engines can mount engines.
Okay.
But I'm not really sure how that works. I guess your engine would have a dependency of another engine.
Yeah.
Yes, the RFC says that should work, but I don't know if that means that it works. And here's a regular template page. So as Ben was showing earlier, this is how you can create a link between. I lost my cursor. This is how you can create a link in Ember. This is a lot better than just doing just an anchor tag to something. If you do an anchor tag, then that dies as soon as that thing moves, as soon as that resource moves or is renamed or whatever. Using something like this, it's a little bit more resilient, and it warns you if there's a problem. If something is moved, it will warn you that it moved. So this is just a regular one. This is linking just to one of our own routes. And then this one is using one of the engine routes. So you'll see it has the engine name dot route, which is the same way that nested routes work, is that you nest them and it uses a dotted path name to access them. I think that's all I had. Yeah, that's all I had for that one. Okay, here's an engine. So this is its engine .js file, or this is route file. So this is the route that it's exposing. It's saying that I have a route called planning, so that looks just like the Ember router. And then in the engine, it's saying, here are my dependencies. So I have these external routes that I need to have access to. I didn't inject a store into this, but this is, again, where that would happen. And one thing that's a little different here is to do a link. If you're linking from an engine up to the app or to another engine, actually an engine doesn't know if it's the app or another engine it's linking to. Those were just passed into it. It just knows the name of something. But if you're linking to those, you do use link to external. So that's from Ember engines. You don't use link to like normal. And then my other engine is basically the exact same thing, so I'm not going to show that. All right, so I will show you this really awesome app that we've built. So, Denver.gov is contracted with us to redesign their webpage. We've gone without using CSS because it sucks and it's slow. Our turnaround time is much faster since we're not styling, so it's pretty solid. So we have events here. Remember, events was from our main app. So that as you see, that works fine. Go back. Transportation. Now this is a link to one of our engines routes. So we click that. And we shamefully steal Steve's website and nest it in an iframe because that's really fantastic web design. All right, so we go back. Oh, that'd be great. Yeah, if you want to publish RTD as an engine, that'd be great. And our last one, housing. So this is showing affordable housing in Denver currently. That's not a bug. There's just no results. I definitely seeded this with a ton of data. It's not laziness on my part. And engine to engine. So this is the housing engines. This is down the bottom of one tree. Events, remember, was another engine, the bottom of another tree. So if I click on events, actually that was the app. So that goes back to events. If I click on transportation, that works again. So that finds its way up to the Ember app and over to the other engine.
So will your link to external, like at initial app boot time, will it complain if the engine is mounted, has a link to an external thing that doesn't actually exist in the consuming app?
Yeah, link to external complains because it shows. Yeah, when it boots up, it looks at what has been injected into it. So yeah, that is another error, which is nice. So the links are one thing that if those aren't working, well, if you load a page and it's just blank, as always with Ember, look at your console. Links, those pretty much always warn you that I don't know where this route is, I don't know where this engine is. Those warnings are pretty good. And there's a lot of other warnings that are just silent fails. Most of the things I hit were silent fails, but links work great.
So this is really cool. This is awesome. I have one kind of question. So how would you do like say menus, or you had a top level like bar, basically the one you would basically link to the different things.
Yeah. Well, there's.
That is the center app is being.
Yeah. Well, there's a lot of different ways to do that. The way I've typically done it, if you always have that stuff, then just put it in like an application route, and then you have your outlet, which is everything that's changing. So your application template route, all that knows about the nav bar, the links, and then it renders underneath it whatever is the current page. There's other ways to do it too. So if you have other pages that are kind of one-offs that don't have that, then you can tweak this too. But
one strategy, we aren't using engines, but one strategy we use at my day job, we've got multiple apps that are all closely related. There's like a public-facing app, there's a customer-facing app, there's an admin-facing app, and they all kind of deal with the same thing. So we actually have an Ember add-on that's just like the shared components that all of those different apps use. And I assume, because you can mount an add-on inside an engine, you could have the consuming app use some add-on that has that navbar component. And if your engine needed to have control over that page somehow, but also have that same navbar component, you could have the engine potentially use that as a dependency as well.
Yeah. One thing, I don't know why this doesn't work, but I guess by design, engines cannot share templates and components. I think that's just encapsulation. They just don't want you to do that. But engines can't expose, like, here's a component for my parent to render. Like, they want you to do that as an add-on. They don't want you to do that as an engine, which is these routes plus random components. And like, they really clearly separated that line. I don't know if that works. And by works, I mean, I don't know if they did the work to break that, to make that encapsulated, because I didn't try to do it, but that's how it's supposed to work. Yeah.
So if you're sharing a component,
yeah.
An engine can have its own components and just can't share those back up.
Yeah, you can use them all at once. Just the parent will never know about them. There's no way to expose that. What's that?
Can you share Ember services?
You can share services. Yeah. So one really funny thing, I've got this on another slide too, but one funny thing is that in an Ember engine, if you want to use the store, like if you're using Ember data, like you should, the store that you use is not the Ember data store. It is the Ember store, which I never knew existed. But there's something called the Ember store that is just not Ember data store. And you're using that, and it's like, oh, I don't know what models are. I don't know what any of this is. And it's really confusing. So if you want to use the Ember data store in an engine, you have to give that to the engine by the app. They have that in their docs, but as normal, if you're jumping around the docs because you hit a wall again, that's something you might kind of gloss over.
Do actions from engine routes bubble normally all the way up to your consuming application route?
I don't know that. That's a good question. I would hope so. I would hope they would behave that way, but yeah, I didn't try that. Okay. Switch back over here too. Okay. All right, so here's a just miscellaneous hodgepodge of the things that I think are useful. Name spacing of styles. This is just kind of a good practice in general. If you have an add-on that has styles that are specific to that add-on, don't call things, like button or, like .green or things like that. Like namespace it under, you know, my add-on .green or my add-on .primary or something like that. Otherwise, you just can have collisions of styles. The parent app wins. So if you pull in an add-on and you don't like its styles, you just style stuff differently and you will trump the add-on. Like that's by design, that we can override things we don't like, things we want to change. Just realize that and plan for that. Like override things, well, name them uniquely so that they can be overridden when wanted. In repo add-ons versus not in repo add-ons. Who here has even heard of an in repo add-on? Okay, so yeah, most of the people have dealt with Ember before. In repo add-ons, I mean, one of the main thing with that is it's an add-on that is not a separate project. It lives inside your main Ember project. It's still an add-on. You still pull it in like normal, but it shares like your package.json and your Bower. So it has the same dependencies. It's really, I don't think it's a good idea to use with Ember engines because, I mean, then all that code has kind of been bottled up inside your engine. I guess it's good for encapsulation, but if you're wanting to use the engine for lazy loading, then you know all of that code is there. Like, how is that going to get split out? And also, if you do want to split those individually, eventually, it's kind of a pain at that point because then you have to break that out and then manually add every dependency and figure out, you know, what do I actually need for this add-on. You have to use Ember CLI 2.3 plus. Just make sure you're current on Ember CLI. I mean, Ember CLI will work with much older versions, so there's generally not a good reason to use a old version of CLI. I'm sure people here can tell me why I'm wrong about that, but that's never bitten me. And create it with Ember 2.6. So like I said, if you're migrating an existing app, then be prepared for some pain and document that pain so that the rest of us don't have to deal with it. This one does show up in the console, and they do have it in the guides, but just a thing to know about. Your add-on has to have HTML bars as a dependency, not a dev dependency, but a dependency. If you don't do this, it just won't work. Like I said, store is not what you think it is. It's something different. A few people in here probably know what that is, but I don't care. So you can go look that up. And lastly, from the IT crowd, have you tried turning it off and back on again? Like seriously, I had an engine. I added this store that I want to inject into my engine. App and engine are two files that if you modify them, Ember doesn't give a shit. It just ignores them. Like those are files that it runs, like that's the app that it runs, and then everything else it changes will be loaded up into that. But it won't reload if you change that. And so, I mean, you'll be adding all this other stuff, expecting it to work, and it's not working. So that's just another solution. It's just kill the Ember app, restart it, see if that helps. So should you use engines? No. Or yes, or maybe. It really depends. Like it's a young project. That RFC was about 2 years ago, and Ember engines really only started to get development about a year ago. So Tom Dale threw that out there. Hey, we should do this. He hadn't written a single line of code for it. But there's a lot of debate. So it's not that it died. I mean, there's a lot of discussion like how should we do this? What should it be? Like what should engines look like? So the RFC went through a lot of work, and was only recently like finalized. Like this is what we're doing. This is what it's going to be. The activity on it worries me a little bit. There's two really solid core devs on it. I don't know that third guy, but he's put a lot of contributions into it also. But after that, it just drops off. Like he works at LinkedIn. Oh, cool. After that, it drops off. There's not a lot of contributors. I think if you're wanting to get into open source and you want to start with a really hard project, I bet they would let you contribute to this and help out because it works great, but there's a lot of areas where it should explode and tell you, you didn't do this. This is wrong. You should have done this. Like there can just be right now as it is pretty solid, but there could be a lot more tooling around just helping you realize how you fucked up. Because that's why I did not live code, because I knew I would do that again. I would forget to do that one file or to restart at the right time.
Do you use Ember Inspector at all?
Yeah, I do.
Does it play nice with Ember Inspector?
It works, but there's no. I mean, Ember Inspector doesn't really know about engines. It doesn't know that, oh, you're using an engine and you didn't do this or whatever. Yeah, so that's it. Send all your complaints to David, who made me do this. If you have any questions, ask David. And yeah, that's all I've got. I like him. I want to use him, but I'm waiting right now because we don't have to use engines yet. So we're waiting until we have to make a decision, and then I think we're going to decide to use engines, but we don't have to do that yet. So I don't have to be an expert yet. Any other questions, comments?
Do they have like an upcoming milestone of things that they know are broken that they want to get fixed before? Like, is it in pre-release? Do you know anything about kind of the roadmap for getting it more solid? Yeah,
that's a really good question. So their README, they have very specific comments, and they're about, we're not giving you a milestone. We're not answering these questions because we don't know yet. So there are areas of their documentation that they know are light, and that's because they don't know yet. And so a milestone, roadmap, like none of that. It's just too up in the air right now. Well, yeah, one other thing I wanted to mention is that they have, there's been a pull request that's been active for about 3 months with really good guides that help you get going with engines a lot better than their really crappy README did. And that got accepted like 2 days ago. So right before this, that finally got accepted. It got merged in. That's, if you go to the Ember Engines page, you'll see the crappy README. But then if you look at the source, there's something called guides. And you go in there and there's like 7 of them. And it's just telling you, justifying engines, and then telling you like, let's create an engine, now let's mount it, now let's do this. So the guides are a really good resource. There's some typos. I saw Steve actually contributed to it recently.
You should add a link to guides in the README.
Yeah, if they have it. Yeah, I don't think they do. So yeah,
save it for open source night.
Yeah, don't use up all open source.
That's a beginner one. That's awesome.
Other questions for Dennis? 1 time, 2 times. 1 round of applause for Dennis. Ahoy, ahoy, ahoy. Okay, so the talk's done. The party is over. I would like 1 more round of applause for our sponsors. Thank you so much, guys. Woo! Chipotle burritos, get the fuck out of here. Pretty good stuff. And if you are interested in speaking at this meetup, please come hit us up either in person or virtually. We would like to ideally build out a speaker list in the future. And we're still trying to like turn the dials and get this to be premier JavaScript meetup in Denver. So without any further ado, party gang, bye!
If you haven't voted in the poll on where we should hold the meetup, right now,